down in the Midlands town of Burton-on-Trent. To the casual observer, it looks like any other Midlands town.
Now, actually, it's the most important site in the history of world brewing.
It didn't become such an important site by accident. It's a unique intersection of chemistry, geology, and Victorian fluid dynamics. Let's take a look.
Crossing St Peter's Bridge, the scale of the landscape is clear. The bridge spans the River Trent in an accompanying floodplain known as the Washlands. This floodplain acts as a natural sponge for the River Trent, while for the brewing industry it serves as a source of groundwater. It's a unique geological cocktail perfected over the millennia by the slow grinding shifts of the Earth's crust. All of this so that Big John down at the Cooper's Arms can have something to wash down a lukewarm pork pie and a packet of scampi fries with. Monks used to use the same water back in the 14th century to brew ale. Today that spiritual pursuit has been replaced by heavy industry in manufacturing Bass, Carling and pedigree amongst others, proving that while empires fall and religions fade, the human urge to get merry, bloated and occasionally rowdy around the back of a pub remains eternal. At Branston Water Park you can see some of the gravel that makes up part of a natural filtration system. The town of Burton sits upon a vast bed of river terrace gravels, but further beneath the ground lies the Mercia Mudstone, a layer packed with gypsum, or calcium sulphate to use its proper name. As groundwater is forced up through the mudstone it packs up a massive mineral load. This hard water is fantastic for brewing. It creates a chemical environment which allows for an incredibly high hop count without the beer becoming unpleasantly harsh. It yields a bright, stable and crisp ale that can't be replicated anywhere else. Historically, Burton's liquid gold was a logistical marvel. It was shipped to the furthest reaches of the empire, not for a knees up, but as a biological necessity. In colonies where the local water is essentially a soup of tropical bacteria, Burton's chemically stable ale provided a safe way to remain hydrated, a reminder of the rolling countryside of Staffordshire, and a very efficient way to ensure the Governor-General couldn't feel his own legs by the end of the night. To meet the global demand of the British Empire, i.e. keeping the upper classes in the back of Burma tanked up, Burton's brewers had to create an efficient way of brewing in bulk. They came up with the Burton Union System. I'll do my best impression of a teacher to show how this process works. Keep in mind I'm neither a brewer or a teacher, but I did go to school and I also like beer, so I'm at least partly qualified. Before brewing can begin, the raw ingredients need to be mixed together to create something called wort. Spelt W-O-R-T, but pronounced like, well, shirt. Malted barley and water at exactly 74 degrees, give or take a degree or two to account for the brewer's mood, patience and intoxication level, are mixed together in a mash tun, not a character from Lord of the Rings, but instead a copper or wooden tank masquerading as a giant sieve. The grains are removed at this point and only the liquid remains. The liquid, now called sweet wort, is piped to a kettle where it's boiled and hops are added. Once hopped, the liquid is filtered out and sent to a cooler. After it's cool, the brewer chucks in some yeast in a process called pitching. The liquid, now called fermenting wort, is ready for, well, fermentation. The wort is added to a series of interconnected casks. As the yeast ferments, it's purged out of a swan-neck pipe connected to the top of each barrel and is collected in a shared trough. Yeast is removed from this trough and sent elsewhere in Burton for sinister purposes. More on that in a minute. While the settled beer flows into a reservoir called a feeder back that keeps the barrels topped up. When the swan necks cease vomiting yeast, the beer is done. As for that sinister purpose, well, the spent grain left in the mash tun after removing the liquid was traditionally sold off to farmers for cattle feed, while the yeast went on to manufacturers to make disgusting things like Marmite, also produced in Burton because of the availability of clean yeast from the breweries. Marmite is salty, aggressively divisive to a point that it's used as a figure of speech, and technically a form of edible industrial waste. Yum. If you've not had the displeasure of trying Marmite, well, don't. Have a beer instead.
By the 1820s, Britain had a problem. The water in colonial India was pretty much toxic to any resident Brits, so we had to ship out alcohol, which is the only real clean drinking solution. The problem was that the stouts and the porters sent from London didn't really ship very well and would arrive in India as a kind of sludge. Burton's brewers realised they could use their mineral-rich water to increase the hop count and make a pale ale, which is what the area is known for. IPA stands for India Pale Ale, not because it's made in India, because it was brewed in Britain to be shipped to India and last. The hops acted as a natural preservative, and shipping it across the sea in a gentle rocking motion which helped it to ferment, so by the time it arrived it was clear and ready to drink. It wasn't just a drink, it was a biologically stable export which made it all the way to India and put Burton on the map really. Just behind me is a Burton Tower, which is where they used to store the water made for brewing. It's not used today, but it's been left as a heritage landmark. This is the origin of the IPA.
Unfortunately, by 2024 the UK cask ale market had waned and no sales made the system financially unviable. The last active Burton Union sets at Marston's brewery were decommissioned, and production of Pedigree, the last ale using the Union system, was moved to a modern stainless steel fermentation technique. No longer at use at Marston's, the components of the Burton Union system were gifted to Thornbridge Brewery in Derbyshire, proving that if Burton didn't want its history, then the neighbours are more than happy to take it and stick it on the mantelpiece, following a long tradition of folk in Derbyshire stealing from people around the borders. I'm only joking, I'm allowed to say that, I'm from Derby. Today, the forest of chimneys over Burton-on-Trent has been replaced by a skyline of stainless steel tanks. The Molson Coors site produces millions and millions of pints of Carling and Madry, but automation means that the thousands of workers are now a handful of technicians. Because of this, many of them red brick cathedral-like breweries have been demolished to make way for retail parks. It's a cruel irony for those made redundant, losing your job at a brewery only to be hopeful for a shift at the home bargains built on top of it years later. As for those 14th century monks, I like to think that they're still around in spirit, likely working at the checkout at Lidl, keeping a vow of silence and quietly judging your choice of beer on a Friday night. Until next time, I've been Ben, and this has been Halfway to Nowhere. If you've enjoyed this video, then you can like or subscribe, or drop a comment below. Have you trained your gullet to tolerate Carling? If so, how?